Hey learners, welcome back to Build Coders. In the previous video, we discussed about back of the envelope estimations, why estimations even matter. We did an example estimation for Instagram and finally understood the goal of estimation and how it affects our architecture. In today's video, we will discuss HLD and LLD, that is low level design and high level design. Starting with a brief intro of the same, then we will deep dive into what HLD is, what LLD is, a comparison between the both of them, and finally we will discuss the scope of this playlist. So let's start. Now, many beginners hear terms like high level design, low level design, and instantly feel confused. Are they different subjects? Do you even need both? The truth is simple. HLD and NLD, they are just two zoom levels of the same system. It is like the same system you are looking at through different lenses for different purpose. So there are two different zoom levels of the same system. Let's understand both clearly. Let's deep dive into what HLD is first. So, high level design means looking at the system from a bird's eye view. Imagine you're flying over a city in a plane. You will see roads and buildings, right? And zones, different zones. This is a bird's eye view. You don't know what furniture is inside any building, right? You don't know what the rooms look like inside this building. And you don't care about it. Putting this into context of code, we don't care about what classes are we using in the code or what functions are we using or have we have created, right? What we care about are big questions. What are the big questions that HLD answers? What HLD answers are questions like what are the major components of my system? How do my users connect? How is my data stored? How does traffic flow given the design of my system? And how my system scales, right? So these are questions that HLD is answering for you. So this is a bird's eye view is what HLD is. We'll take an example. Let's take example of Instagram only. Okay. So we'll take an example of Instagram HLD. Just an overview. So HLD of Instagram, what will it include? It will include an app, right, or a client. Then you'll have API servers, you'll have authentication, and you'll have services like authentication, feed, you will have database, you will have cache, you will have storage, you will have CDNs, you will have load balancers, right? And then you'll have arrows showing this communication, right? This is what your HLD will have. You are drawing, when you're talking about HLD, you are drawing the city map. So you are only focusing on architecture. Your focus is on architecture and not the implementation. Okay, so HLD is a bird's eye view of your system. You are answering questions like what my major components are, how my users are connecting, how is my data stored, and finally, how does my system scale? Now coming to what LLD is. You are in a plane over a city, right? Now imagine landing the plane and walking into one building in that city. Now you care about very different things. You care about the rooms, right? Doors, furniture, because you're inside of the building. How your elevators are working, how the wiring works. So you're focusing on the internal implementation details. That is what low level design is. It's more internal. So basically, you are zooming in on one component and designing what is inside it. So the questions are going to change completely. Questions that LLD answers are going to be very different. For example, what classes are we creating in our code, right? What methods should exist? What all methods do we have to use? The modules that exist, the design patterns we are using. the schema, the database schema, right? So you're going very deep, you're going into the internal implementation, how your, for example, how your components are behaving internally. That is what LLD is answering. We'll take an example of Instagram LLD as well, so that we understand this better. So example of Instagram LLD. Look at what HLD looks like for Instagram. If we zoom into, for example, I am taking a like feature, right? You have the like feature in Instagram. For example, you zoom into the like feature. You may design a class post. You may design a class user or a class like service, right? You may design some methods. Let's talk about certain methods that we may use here. For example, you could have add like, you could have a get like method, you could have a remove like method. I like something by mistake, I want to remove it, right? So the database table, how will your database table look like for this? You may have a user ID, a post ID, and what else? Timestamp. So basically, you are focusing on the implementation. So when we talk about LLD, our focus is on the code structure and implementation. Let's just revise this once more. HLD is like you are in a plane, you are viewing a city, you are looking at many buildings, zones, right? So we don't care about classes and functions when we are viewing from a bird's eye view. What are the questions that HLD is answering? The major components, how connections are happening between my users, how is my data stored, my traffic, my scale, how all of this works is what HLD answers. In the Instagram HLD, we saw this example. So basically, I'm looking at my architecture from a bird's eye view. So my focus is on the architecture and not the implementation because we're designing a city map and not the building design, right? LLD is like you go inside a building. You have come out of the plane, you are inside a building. So what are the questions? You are looking at the rooms, the doors, furniture. So basically, you are focusing on the internals of the component. So the question that LLD is going to answer are like what classes are there in my code? What methods am I using? What modules am I using? What are the design patterns? And what is the schema of my database? So if you're going more and more internal, if you focus. Now, example for Instagram already, we took a normal like feature. Here, we go deep into one feature, right? We see lots of classes created, we see lots of methods created, right? We look at the database, how it will look like, just an idea. So our focus is on the code structure and the implementation, right? Now let's keep both of these side by side to finally understand this crystal clear, right? HLD versus LLD. What is HLD asking? HLD, or rather, what is HLD answering? HLD is answering your services, what services you have, right? It is telling you about your communication. It is talking about scale. It is talking about failure. What is LLD answer? LLD answers the classes that you need, the methods that exist, right? Interaction in your code. For example, interaction of modules, let's say. Yeah. And the maintainability of code. This is also coming under LLD. So if I have to wrap it in one word for both of them, HLD is my system architecture and LLD is my code architecture. Okay, I hope that makes it even more clear. So both of them are important. They are not two different sides of the same coin. In fact, they are the same side viewed at two different zoom levels, right? I need to understand both HLD and NLD to design my system. What are the major components of my system is what HLD will tell me, and how those components work internally and how they're designed internally is what LLD will tell me. Coming to the playlist scope, what is the scope of this playlist? Our playlist is mainly going to focus on high level design, that is HLD. Okay, because before writing classes and methods, you must understand scaling and databases and caching, load balancing And distributed systems, very important. Let us first build our city, the buildings, then we'll go into the internals, right? Once this foundation of HLD is strong, right? This foundation, LLD will become significantly easier to learn. Okay, so for this playlist, we are first and majorly going to focus on HLD. We'll go towards LLD later. So that you first understand these concepts and then we can finish our LLD and finally design a complete working efficient system. So you know what HLD and LLD is now? HLD is your big picture architecture, like the city from above. LLD is your internal implementation details, like a building from inside. So both of them are going to matter. Both HLD and LLD, they matter equally. Okay? They are just, as we discussed in the starting, they are two zoom levels of the same systems. But when you talk about large scale systems, your large scale systems like big systems, they begin with your HLD. Okay? In the next video, we will talk about very interesting monoliths and distributed systems. This is going to be very interesting because this is something that is so widely used, but the more pros it has the cons as well. So it's a very important decision how you want your system to work. You want it to be monolith or you want it to be distributed. We'll discuss this in our next video. And finally, we will understand in this video, like the next video, why one server eventually stops being enough given your system requirements, right? So stay tuned for the next video and keep watching this playlist. Happy learning. Thanks for watching.